welcome to Tech for Founder podcast. I'm your host, Panida, and today we have the privilege of hosting Lindsey Witmer Collins, the visionary founder of Welcome, with a portfolio boasting over 100 award winning apps with recognition from INC Fast 100, Oprah Magazine, and more. Lindsey's unique perspective as both an entrepreneur and a software architect has redefined the app development landscape. Discover how non-technical founders can navigate the app development journey with confidence, learning from Lindsey's wealth of experience on Tech for Founder. So, as both an entrepreneur and a software architect, how has your perspective influenced the world of app development and played a crucial role in the founding of Welcome? We'd love to hear about the unique experiences and knowledge that have shaped your journey.
Yeah, so I think the most formative experience that I had was trying to get into this space as a non-technical founder, which is why I'm really passionate about helping non-technical founders navigate this space with confidence and put themselves in a situation to succeed. For me, I just got really excited about the possibility with apps. My degree is in engineering, not software engineering, but just an actual engineering. Um, and I was working in international development before that. I lived in South Africa for a while. And so I came back to the United States and people had Blackberries. Do you remember that? Uh, that was like the first big, craze was Blackberries. And I watched the way that people were using this. I mean, it was just a total shift. We went from like not being able to watch videos or do social media on our phone to being able to do it. So it was just insane. And I got really excited about it. Just the possibility that, okay, you could build a little tool that people could install on their phones and carry around in their pockets and use. And so that was really exciting to me. Also, the fact that like you can make something, and unlike physically engineering a product with software, you can build it and you can ship it globally for free immediately. And then you can change the product and ship the updates to everyone over the world immediately. And so somebody can hold your little tool that you made them and watch it improve right in their very hands. And that felt magical to me. It still feels magical to me. And I wanted to be a part of it. So, with what I want, I had an idea for a way. Well, it doesn't matter what the idea was, but I had an idea. It was really exciting to me. And I didn't know how to build it, obviously. So I literally Googled like how to find an app developer, like where are app, this is super early days. Like the app store just launched, everything was brand new. And I found an agency that was based in New York City. And I thought, well, that sounds legit. We didn't have there weren't ways to validate, there weren't reviews or, so I just was like, oh, well, I can trust these people. They're good at their job. They just didn't deliver. And that was a problem, like for me personally, right? That was sad. But also just the fact that I had gotten a lot of investment and I won this big grant and had friends and family investing in it. And so I was not only not getting my product, but I was letting down all of these other people who I had said, oh, they would tell me, oh, we're going to deliver this on this date. And then I would tell my people, we're going to deliver this on this date. And so then when it turned out that they didn't come through, then that looked like I wasn't coming through to my external stakeholders. And that's the thing that was the most just terrible for me as a human, like I just felt like, oh wow, like now I've lied. I've been dishonest. And I didn't, because I trusted these people. So their failure kind of became mine. And that was just terrible. I sent them money. I waited and waited and waited for them to come through, and they just never delivered. Never delivered. They showed me one UI. They showed me like a little mock-up of one UI. And I was like, oh, wow, great. It's really moving. But because I didn't really understand, anything about how this process should work, the kind of transparency I should have into it. Checks and accountability, regular meetings, like things like that. I just had no idea. And I think they looked at me as like, oh, here's this young girl. She's very happy. She's probably not very smart, And so, like, I think I got really taken for a ride in that way. For that reason, or at least for that reason as well. So anyway, it was a bad experience. I eventually figured out how to get the app done. I hired some developers who are based in the US. They were also extremely unreliable, to be honest. Um, but what I sort of became obsessed with was user experience, which actually, in hindsight, I realize is something I've been obsessed with my whole life. And I was just like waiting for this role to exist in the world because it was like custom built for everything that I think is wonderful and fun. And so I started designing the user experience of this product myself. And I apprenticed with Yuhan Sonnen out of MIT for a year and a half, and he really taught me everything he knew, and he was mercilessly critical of everything that I made. So and I still have Johan's voice in the back of my mind, and I still reach out to him from time to time to check in on things. Like, his studio just does user experience and user research. So he's not shipping all the time, but I ship all the time. So I like to show him my products, and I think he likes to be involved in that because he isn't necessarily shipping. And so anyway, that's how I learned. And it was something I picked up pretty quickly because it's just, yeah, it's like the job is made for me. It's like, wow, this is, there's a human perception aspect of it. There's a psychology aspect of it. There's beauty is a big part of it. And, that those things all coming together is like a very sweet spot for me in terms of being endlessly interesting. And it continues to be endlessly interesting because the landscape is always shifting. Users are getting used to something, and so it's no longer effective. So you always kind of have to push the envelope and know how far you can push it and still succeed because you don't want to go beyond you don't want them to have to learn how to use your product. So you want to surprise and delight, but not make it hard or confusing in any way. So yeah, that's my journey. I think that I just have a ton of empathy for people getting into this space, new. And the agency the agency was built because of that. So basically, I finished this product, I launched it. It actually did pretty well, and it, based on my standards now, and even at the time, like, I knew, like, this is such a mediocre sort of version of what I had in my head. So it was like, I wasn't like super thrilled by it. But I actually got like a lot of press around it. It ranked for a while. Like, it did actually pretty well. And people were reaching out to me like, oh, I want to build an app. How do I do this? Again, early days. So it was for me like watching people who I liked and wanted to succeed wade into a pond that I knew was just full of alligators, and I wanted to carry them across. And so basically that's what I did. And I was doing that on the side. I had another business I wanted to start, but I was doing this, and I was taking up more and more and more of my time. It was not a business. I did not have a website. And I told my husband, I was like, I need to stop working on apps because it's distracting me from this other business I want to create, which is not making any money. And I really need to commit to it. And he just said, well, hey, nobody wants to pay you for this work. People want to pay you for this work. So why don't you actually pursue tech, which took, it took me a couple of days to come around to that. But now it's just obviously like it's just my favorite thing in the world. So it's just kind of the way it works out. I think of myself as an uh, accidental software person. But yeah, that's how I got into it, was just hoping to provide the service that I wished that I had had, which involved a lot of learning, figuring out how to do it right, learning from what other agencies were doing well, and, creating my own secret sauce. Yeah. So long
That's
answer to a short question.
That's an amazing journey. I think companies that are built out of your own problem and you solving that, it really helps everyone because you really know what the real issue is, especially with the unreliability of outsourcing software, especially when you're not a software person. They're like, hey, that this person doesn't know what they're talking about. I'll just like tell them this that and let's do the add-on here. But like I think it's just very unfair, especially for someone who really wants their app built. And I think what you've built with Welcome is like really helpful to new entrepreneurs.
Thanks. Yeah, we try. I mean, I think the other part of it too is code quality, because you can hire a team to deliver a product and then it can, on the surface, do what it's supposed to do, but behind the scenes be like a huge giant mess. And there's no way, as somebody who can't read code, to like know that. You can't know that, right? It's like we got I got a filling recently from the dentist, which is too bad. But anyway, I was thinking like, I don't know. He was actually replacing an old filling, and I was like, I don't even know. Like, that first dentist did a bad job of, like, how would I have ever known that? And this dentist is redoing it, but I'm like, how do I even know that he did a good job? Like, I can't watch his process. I don't know, like it's impossible, right? So I think there are some like red flags, and there's some things you can ask for. We wrote like a couple of blog articles about it on our site if you want to take a look at that. But I think like one thing to really look out for is like, you don't really want to hire an outsource like code machine, is kind of what I call them, where it's basically like a informal network of thousands, tens of thousands of developers, who just take jobs here and there. Like, they don't, or it's like a factory of like thousands of junior level developers, who are just building. There isn't like the quality control. They don't care about quality control. They're just trying to make a buck, make as much money off of each head as they can. So that's something. I wouldn't hire a code machine. I think it's nice to have like a team that's worked together, that knows each other, that cares about you, that cares about the product, focus on quality. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Someone with a team that cares about the product is a lot more useful than someone who's just like writing a bunch of code, because just because you can develop an app doesn't mean that app will succeed, especially if you are not trying to help it succeed, especially with user experience like what you talked about, because that's really important as well.
Yeah, user experience is everything. It's not about the idea so much as how you execute on the idea. And you can
Definitely.
assume pretty easily that you're one of probably like 15 people with that idea. And, some will try and some won't, but it's like, you've got to do it the best. You've really got to ace it, and it's not easy. It looks easy, but it's not easy, and sometimes I see people come to me with like a long list of features, and people, it's really not about the features. It's really about getting the thing done that needs to get done as easily as possible, as quickly as possible. Um, and so that kind of, if you just have a feature driven approach, like, I'm going to hire you, develop these 15 features, the likelihood you're going to succeed is actually really low. It's better to say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do, and then have somebody who's worked in product to help you figure out like how to solve that problem in the best, easiest way possible without a lot of friction, without a bunch of options to navigate, just, get it done.
Yes, definitely. Focus on the problem and not the feature. So, for non technical founders, the technical aspect of app development can sometimes feel intimidating. What strategies would you suggest to foster effective collaboration with technical experts, ensuring that app ideas are brought to life seamlessly?
That's a great question. And I think the most important thing is to choose a partner who you feel really comfortable talking with and communicating with, and you know that they get it. If it takes a long time for them to get it and contribute with you, basically co-work on the idea with you. Um, yeah, I just think that's the most important thing. Language barriers can matter quite a bit. Um, and they can also, and some people are just great at English, so, and they can understand conceptually what's going on. So I wouldn't write out everybody who's not in the US, obviously. But I think just that whoever this team is that you hired, you have a project manager or a product leader who you're working with who totally gets it and is adding value from day one in terms of their ideas. Yeah, that's what you should expect, and don't settle for less than that, because then you don't actually have a real partner. You just have a developer, which is not all you need to succeed, as you know. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, Welcome has been recognized for building 100 plus award winning apps. What are some key principles or strategies you attribute to your agency's success in creating impactful and innovative apps?
Strategies. I feel like strategies for making great apps. I think I don't know that I have specific tactics, but what I'll say is I am obsessed with product. I'm obsessed with user experience. When I'm listening to a podcast, it's about user experience. Like, what's the latest? What are we trying? What works? What is this executive at Typeform saying about product right now? What did he just publish? For a while, like this summer, I was like the summer of onboarding. I felt like I was super in the weeds on onboarding, how to optimize onboarding, looking at our analytics. What about conversions? What is our KPI? Getting people into the app or getting people signed up for a subscription or what? So it was kind of like the summer of onboarding. And then I had, a period of time where we were just talking about paywalls, and paywalls are like a fairly tough nut to crack. Like, so there's this app, Who Farted. This is an app for kids to raise money for charities for kids, that we built, that Welcome built in partnership with our kids. The concept was their idea, but like this app's paywall, download the app and go through the paywall and take a look at it. That, we build our own apps internally as a way to kind of push the envelope and take some risks that we wouldn't necessarily take with our clients, or that they maybe we have an idea that we think is really great, but like it's not necessarily what's going to be the right fit for them. So we have our own projects where, like, well, let's test it out. Let's do it the way we think. Like, it's not just about like, oh, hey, I'm a really good expert who's going to sit up here and tell you what to do, but I'm going to actually, if I am actually good at this, can I create an app like with all of my own ideas, and like, will it still succeed? Will it be great? Just always sort of keeping myself kind of sharp in that way. But and keeping myself always learning. So I don't, like, in my mind, I don't think there are specific tactics you can follow, which is honestly my favorite thing about this field. It's an art. It's a science, but it's mostly an art. And there are some basic tenets of user experience, which Johan Sonnen, who was my mentor, he had this deck of 10 like tenets of user experience. You can look him up, that I think are really great and hold all the way through. But in terms of the specifics, it's not like a cookie cutter thing. And because the landscape's always changing, you have to always up level, find new tricks, try new things, take some risks, see how it works. But I do like to take some risks, which can often for me be about like injecting like an actual personality and sense of humor into a product, which could go one of two ways. You can't always be sure. So, something else that I heard was users cannot be predicted. They can only be observed. And I think what can be hard for founders is you just want to get it absolutely right. And we can sit around and spin on something for months. But what you really have to do is say like, hey, this is my best guess. Let's try it. Let's observe and then figure out if we got it or we didn't, Yeah.
So it's more about getting your product out there and observing users rather than trying to predict them yourself. And also, there is no exact strategy for a winning app because it's just like Twitter. Anyone can build Twitter. Anyone can build Facebook. These things are relatively easy to build, but not everyone has Facebook, right?
Yeah, it's true. A lot of things go into that, but those products are really simple, but you can imagine trying to create, I mean, that's what's so good about them. That's why they're so successful. They're just super ultra simple. And I think, as a lot of people might have wanted to build a social media network who didn't take off because it was pretty complex. There were a lot of features. So I don't know. I think that's like a good case study for all of us. Is like maybe if anybody could rebuild your app, that means that it's probably simple enough. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. This is like I'm having this idea right now, but yeah.
So non-technical founders often struggle with prioritizing features and functionalities in their app. How do you guide your clients in making these decisions to create a seamless user experience?
Yeah, so those are sort of the harder conversations that will happen. I feel like pre MVP launch, to me, like there it's pretty clear. So what I would say, before you launch your MVP, you need to make sure that your product is doing the thing that it's meant to do, and you want to get really clear on what it is. What is the problem that you're solving? And then, are we solving that problem? Having people test the product, etc., and just get everything out of the way, other than the user is able to solve that problem, and then get rid of anything else that would distract from that process being seamless and easy. I think that I see it all the time, and I would say like 75% of my clients listen to me on this, and then 25% of them don't. And I think that's fine. Like it's your product, do what you want to do. I'm here, to give you some thoughts. You can take them or leave them, So I would say 25% of them just really have this like special gee whiz thing that they want to put in it, that I would say I would consider it not being MVP worthy, because it's, if that feature is something that only a super user would use, you have to get super users first. You have to get users first. So it's like, here's this thing that you could do if you were like obsessed with this app and like wanted to do all the cool things, you would do this. Well, let's get to that point and then let's add that thing. So just from as a resource perspective for you as a founder, I think I would spend more time and energy on getting those decisions right, because then you'll spend less money ultimately on building out additional things that you really don't need. So I think about like how many people are going to be exposed to this? Like how many people are really going to encounter this use case? And then like how often are they going to use this thing? Um, we we inherited a product from another dev shop and the code was just a huge giant mess. So we had to like rebuild the back end. The front end, we're trying to like work with it. But the one of the video players that the last developers used was like a plug-in third-party video player. And if you move from portrait to landscape on Android, the video will stop playing. And so like the amount of conversations that we've had with this client about like trying to fix this third party, which, as you know, you can't really fix a third party thing. They have to fix their own thing. Which, so there's like lots of limitations there, but it's like their initial launch is being held up forever, because of this one thing. And it's like, well, how many Android users are you really going to have? How many of them are going to watch a video? And then how many of them who are watching the video are going to turn it and then feel like this app is like not worth their time because they had to press play again? To me, it's like, well, it's going to touch so few people, and you really just need to get users first. That, I would not, but, and honestly, it's like financially speaking, it's great for us as an agency. We get to bill more time, but like I've told them many times, like, don't do this. Don't spend time on this. Like, just uh, put it down, but like, it's one of those things. It's your product. If you really care about that, then all right, that's fine. But I would advise otherwise. And then post launch, your decisions really need to be guided by like how it's being used in the wild and the feedback you're getting and what your analytics are saying and what your user conversations are saying. Because users have to be observed, you have to observe them and find all these different ways to listen. Either we have an app for a center that's like a physical center. So, I've gone to that center and spent a month there and just like watched, and listened and talked to people, observed people, and also you want to be having conversations. And of course, you want analytics, but analytics are just, they don't have any texture. So you want to be really talking to people to understand what's actually happening there. And you also want to have some literacy around how to read analytics. I had a client who was like, oh, well, our homepage is great. Like everybody goes to our home, spends most of their time on the homepage. So like we must have really knocked it out of the park on the homepage. It's like, well, maybe, or like our homepage is where they land every time they open the app. There's like, so, I think like learning how to read the analytics is also a thing to like spend a minute doing. So like somebody with sort of a critical analytical mind is a really good fit for that.
Definitely. I think what you said about pre-MVP and making sure the app just solves the problem and removing any external features that you're not sure if your core users want to use yet, and also reading the analytics is good, and you have to understand that, and also making sure you actually observe users in real life and seeing them as people rather than just data on the app. So, cybersecurity is a critical concern in the tech world. How does Welcome address security challenges during the development process to ensure that the apps you build are safe and trustworthy?
Yeah, so there are a lot of best practices in terms of how to architect a product so that it's safe. And, we use those best practices across the board. You might want to ask whoever you hire just about that. So one of the things, we had a client who was signing on a large corporation as one of their B2B users. And large corporations want you to prove that your app is safe because they're on the line. If their employees are using your product and their data gets leaked, that's a vulnerability for them legally. So they want you to jump through a lot of hoops to prove that your product is safe. They might send you so if you have a B2B or enterprise product, this matters the most for you because you really have to prove it. So they will send you like a giant worksheet maybe to fill out, like a Excel spreadsheet that's like 800 miles long. or you can get some kind of certification like SOC 2 or ISO or their GDPR, like there are certain certifications, HIPAA. And when you have those stamps on your product, then you don't need to fill out the worksheet, because it's like, okay, obviously you've got this all like buttoned up, right? In that case, we work with Vanta because we really like them as people, and we've like have a relationship with the founder. Like they're really good humans, are good at their work. And Vanta will kind of help you like basically like automate to the extent possible getting those certifications, but they're also extremely expensive, or can be. It's like, maybe like 30 to 50 grand to get it all set up, and then like 10 grand every year to get audited, 10 to 15 grand a year to get audited. Um, but we like to work with Vanta because they have like a checklist, and they will like real time check for new vulnerabilities. So it's, every week we go in and just make patches all the time. So these things are new little like things are showing up all the time. It's nice for us to have a dashboard like that we can react to. The other thing that we have done is we've had our software go through gray and black box penetration testing, or pen tests. And because of another enterprise client, sort of similar situation, that's kind of nice, because rather than having to like go through like all this rigmarole, we can just be like, so just, okay, try to penetrate our system. And black box and gray box is a higher standard to pass than the black box testing. And so if we would do both and just like, okay, try to crack it. In that case, we passed with flying colors first round. And that was doing absolutely nothing different than we do for any other client, So that's just using best practices and things like you can have a super secure system without additional work, if it's architected well from the very beginning.
Definitely. I think the penetration testing is really useful, and also having the certifications, especially for enterprise software. So the app development process can be complex and time consuming. What project management techniques do you employ to keep projects on track and deliver high quality apps to your clients?
I feel like project management, people don't appreciate it enough, but it's just so critical to getting the work done on time, keeping your technical team like, delivering and accountable and everything like that. So we have been honing our project management processes and documentations for, over a decade. So right now, our teams meet every day. And before we start a project, we'll define our MVP, and then we will create, the development team will be involved in estimating their portions of the product. And we'll do a highly detailed work breakdown. So that's also a very long spreadsheet, but trying to cut the product into the smallest steps possible, so that we can be as accurate as possible, rather than, estimating a feature, like here are all the aspects of the feature. And then we line item estimate them, like lowest time, maximum time, and then our expected time we think it's going to be done. So once we kind of like lock that in, then the project manager will create a Gantt chart. Here's who's going to be doing what when, right? Back end needs to precede front end. So usually the back end dev, anyway. So they're all mapped out on a Gantt chart, who's going to be doing what when. And then once we sign off on that, or the client signs off on that, then we put everything into ClickUp. And we are like expert ClickUp users. Some people like to use Jira, some people like Notion. Like there's a lot of different options. We like really love ClickUp because it just does everything and we use it for everything. And so all of those little tiny tasks become a card within ClickUp that's assigned to a developer. But before that point, it's assigned to the QA. And what the QA does is analyzes all of the business requirements, right? And the QA and I will usually have like a couple of long meetings, a project manager, QA, and myself. That will be like, 2.5 hour meetings, like a couple of them, to make sure that the QA is super clear about what we're doing. There's no ambiguity. There's no guessing between like what the design says and what's supposed to get done. Like she can fill in all those gaps and understands all of them. So then for each of these tasks, she'll write acceptance criteria, detailed acceptance criteria. This task is done when it meets all of these criteria. So when the developer picks up the project to do it, it's super clear what expectations we have for them. So they'll, be assigned it, they'll take care of it, they'll move it into ready for review. QA will run a review on it. The developers in QA will interface like every morning. Here's what I found, here's what we're doing. And the developer might have some questions or need some clarity around, maybe some aspect of the AC or acceptance criteria. But we also try, like, the acceptance criteria is extremely detailed. We'll have like the client look at the AC and like kind of check off that it's correct so that we know everybody's on the same page. But we'll give the client like an excerpt of it and then they can click in and see the whole thing. But it's overwhelming, I think, from the client side to like read all of it. But it's as detailed as possible, and then we deliver and we have our due dates already set. And then we will have like a spreadsheet that kind of shows here's the status of each thing. Is it in progress? Is it in testing? Is it ready to deliver? And then we have a budget monitoring document, which we update every week. And that shows us, are we on time? Are we on budget? And it really shows us, are we on budget? Then we have a separate document that's, are we on time? But anyway, it's actually hard to say, are we on budget while you're in the process of doing it? Let's say it's like $100,000 project. Well, you're under budget until you're not, right? So what we do is we take all of these, we've broken down all of these tasks, and then we assign a value to it as a percentage of the project based on percentage of budget, and then how much did we. So we have this whole spreadsheet that really does tell us, like, if we are on time based on our original estimates, and we share that with the client every week, and we'll talk about it. Like if anything is off or whatever, like we're going to actually need more time here than we thought we were going to need, but we need less time here. Or like we're going to need more QA time, but we need less dev time, or more dev and less QA, or like we need whatever. So we just are always having those conversations. And then there's transparency into the process because the client can at any time go into ClickUp and see who's working on what. Or we also have a document where we just track change requests or, edits. So like we have locked in our initial scope, but we might make changes to that, or, the client might want to do something a little bit different. So we track that separately. And then, and also within the budget monitoring document, so that we are always, essentially, it's like these documents are constantly changing and they're alive. And they're hyper detailed. So, documentation is everything. Accountability is everything. So we document and account for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like a very good project management system you have there, especially about like what you talked about, budget management, and also making sure that it aligns with like the percentage of the app that is built, and also the fact that the client is able to see the project being built as you go. like it's very useful for accountability.
Yeah, and we'll also do release notes with demos sometimes, which is typically, so we'll have a development environment, a staging environment, and a production environment. Production is where you actually ship. Staging is where, a client will see something, and that's where our QAs will test. And then the development environment is like where we're building. So we'll give the client access to our staging environment, and then we'll also have the QA will write up release notes like, okay, we're doing this this version and staging, and like here's what it's doing, and then here's a video demo of it working, so that you can also see it. Because in theory, we could be making up all the other stats, right? In theory, like it would be hard, but we could do that. So it's also nice to be able to actually see it, and have it demonstrated. But what we just really pride ourselves on, like, just the quality of the work, and that it's going to just be stable, just durable, stable. It's not going to be breaking all the time. It's really cheap to upgrade it because, everything is organized. So, yeah. So once something passes QA, like, yeah, check it out. Like, this is good.
Definitely, the demo method is great. So we are wrapping up for today, and I have one last question. So the tech industry is dynamic with trends and technologies emerging constantly. How do you stay ahead of the curve and ensure that your agency remains innovative in its approach?
Yeah. Okay. So the podcasts are a big part of that because I'm constantly digesting these podcasts and like listening to the people who are thinking about it. I also go to conferences all the time. I was just at TechCrunch. AI is amazing. So 1 in 4 VC dollars are going to AI startups and apps. So if you're creating an app, you really should have an AI angle. For us, and this is, we have an internal project, just for this reason. So we have a sandbox where we are really like pushing the envelope on what AI can do based on, we've already built out our initial concept, right? Which I think a lot of people will already know what their initial concept is. And then the question is, how can we up level this with AI creatively? Not like, oh, we're going to add ChatGPT into our app. Like that's not, no, like don't do that, right? Like, but there are just ways that like AI can look at photos and provide feedback on it. AI can do all these things, and so we are experimenting with that in house so that we can then deliver that expertise externally. And I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, "Oh, we're AI experts," because we're not yet. But just give us a little time. It's definitely 100% within our technical capabilities to do. But we're just working on proving it, proving that we can do it and that it works, and we can like prove out um, that it works in terms of like users really like it, you know? So um, that's how we're staying on top of it, is like just a lot of internal workshopping of new concepts and ideas. Yeah.
Definitely, I think a hands-on way of learning AI is the most useful.
Mhm.
So since we're wrapping up for today, thank you so much, Lindsey, for all of your experience today.
Yeah, thank you too for the great questions, and also you did like a really great job of wrapping up what I was saying in like 3 sentences, like one sentence, which is awesome. Because